there's not enough support for Made in Canada. There wasn't enough support in terms of actual transactions happening.
We've been doing this Canada is Not for Sale brand here at our company, Jack Pine, and as a result of doing that, we've come across many folks who have been involved in the garment industry, the fashion industry, and as part of that process, we met you, Kathy, at Redwood Classics, and I just thought maybe we would start by letting you introduce the company and yourself and what you folks do.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you, Liam and Emma, for even including us as part of the offering. It's extremely meaningful. So, Redwood Classics, we are one of the few full service apparel manufacturers that's proudly producing on Canadian soil. I think we really focus on quick to market, high quality, and our collaborative approach in terms of how we do product development and also bring our partners to market at scale. I would like to think with a lot of heart and tender care along the side with that.
So, how long has your company been around? 40 years almost?
Almost 40 years, yeah, since
It's amazing.
1988. We've been manufacturing on Canadian soil since 1988, so a bit of a legacy there. But really, I think it starts with the fact that we came as an immigrant family to Canada with absolutely nothing. I wasn't born in Canada myself either, and I came when I was very young. I remember being a latchkey kid at the age of 5, an only child. My dad worked 3 jobs. My mom worked full time as a seamstress. My dad was a cutter. He would deliver pizza. Somehow figured out how to look at Pearlie's maps when he's still learning English. I don't know. Like we just figured it
Impressive.
out. He was a server at a Chinese restaurant down in Chinatown. So when we started the factory in 1988, the family business, my dad, his brother and sister, it was 5 people and 10 machines.
Wow.
In the late 90s, we grew to a size where we were directly employing close to 500 people. And our minimums were always at 200 units doing custom. And the reason why is it's going back to everyone gave us an opportunity. If we don't take that same approach, then how can we grow the business together? There's really not that many manufacturers left. And we've continued to do this for close to 4 decades now. We've ridden the roller coaster and we're still on the roller coaster. So we've seen quite a bit. We went from a large scale OEM maker for all these global brands and global retailers to when 2001 China joins WTO, quotas get lifted, and brands start going offshore. It was just really challenging, and it was also the global recession that was really challenging. And when you're fighting against fast fashion and what's the cheapest and the
Hmm.
quickest, and we were nothing but slow fashion, focusing on quality and the workmanship and low quantity, slow fashion in terms of honoring the craft. It just became very challenging to stay competitive and be around, and we were
Hmm.
considered a real risk for a lot of financial institutions. So we had a family decision and a business decision. Do we retire like most textile families have, or do we kind of continue fighting the battle? And my dad asked me to be his business partner, and I selfishly at the time was like, I don't think I really want to do this. I mentioned I'm an only child. Those that are in family businesses and generational businesses, they may be able to relate, right? Especially when you're first generation in the family business starting out. The factory became the sibling that I didn't think I realized I had.
One of the things that you mentioned there was this idea that there seems to be all this talk in business and manufacturing about high tech and factories, but at the core of it all, every factory, every product line, every aspect of a manufacturing system, there are people behind it. One of the critical aspects of the garment fashion industry, of course, are sewers and seamstresses and people with generations of skilled labor. So I don't know if you wanted to talk to that at all.
We work on it every day. How do you find the balance? How do we continue to honor the craft makers and put really good product out there but also we need to remain competitive. And how do we leverage on technology? How do we modernize our business? And so it's this huge juxtaposition that we're balancing every day, but it's really at the core of it, as you said, really recognizing the skill set and the experience of our makers and honoring them. I often try to compare it with, let's say, software. We have sewing machines. We think about software, if you can have wonderful software that has all these, capabilities, but if the user of the software doesn't know how to use it properly, it doesn't matter what type of software it is.
It's
It's
not
not a
going to
good
work.
enough software. It's the same
No.
with sewing machines, right? It's the same with our hand cutters. All of these, what we call machines, without the experience, without the tactile understanding of how the fabric works and how your machine runs, it's very hard and you're not going to get that quality. I would say if we think about apparel manufacturing maybe 50 years ago or 40 years ago or 30 years ago, even the product that we wore, the t-shirt that you wore, maybe your neighbor had a hand in it. They worked at the mill perhaps that knitted the fabric, or local manufacturing. And back in the day it built communities, right? Communities and towns and cities were built around industrialization. I'm not saying it should only be industrialization, but where do we find that balance right now is modern day. I would say years ago there was a connection, but then everything has moved offshore. And so when it's out of sight, it's out of mind. So I feel like we've dehumanized consumer goods altogether. We've commoditized it. So I often say we celebrate the agricultural heroes in our farmers, right? They feed us, they nurture us. It's farm to table. When was the last time we've ever celebrated maker to skin? And I don't think we have. And that's what we've been trying to
Hmm.
do the last, 15 years after I've restructured with my dad, Redwood Classics, is we want to celebrate our makers. At the end of the day, if we take, regardless of business, if we bring it down to the basic common denominator, we're all human beings. So let's celebrate that.
Touche. Absolutely. So this sort of dovetails really nicely with one of the mottos that I know you stand by, which is people, planet, profits. And that's sort of, how does that guide your business decision making process?
I think it's a reflection of our family values. It's the people that the reason why I said yes and why we restructured, right? Without people, without our makers, we wouldn't have a business. Planet is, hey, there's only one.
I know
And
you do a lot of work there in the sustainable avenues. So
we
what, you
try.
know, yeah,
We
what
try.
does that look like?
We upcycle local manufacturing. The fact that I shared now more than 50% of the fabric we consume at the factory levels and at 100 miles radius from us intentionally. Don't overproduce. Our minimums are low. Buy what you need.
You talked a lot today about intent, and to me, it speaks to some aspect of foresight when thinking about the future, peering around the corner and trying to ask ourselves, okay, well, what will this action right now or mean into the future? I can't control it, the future, this mystical thing out there, but I can shape it.
Every decision has a consequence. There's not always a right or wrong answer. But if we're
Hmm.
intentional, think through the consequences within our ability, within our means. What is the risk we can take? And that to me is being intentional. So going back to the values is really that, being
Hmm.
intentional. Because if you think about it in the history of our business, we have connections back home. When everyone was going offshore, it was an easy thing for us to do. But the consequences of that was okay, then we'd have to uplift our family. We would have to move back there. And that's the pragmatic way of looking at consequences. The consequences of us, if we made that decision, would have been X. Isn't that what we do as business leaders all day long?
Exactly. Exactly. I think probably to a lot of your partners, I can't speak for them, I can only speak for ourselves. We're upstart, brand new to everything. You've got decades of experience and knowledge. So when you're bringing those partners along with you, you probably get to see a lot of folks grow from very small to, maybe intermediate sized brands along the way over the years. You've seen these brands that get started and you're kind of this commercialized commercial incubator, which is a really cool way of thinking about it and talking about it. I think that's really quite interesting because it sort of frames you also as like a consultant, a partner, and an incubator in a way that a lot of people might find surprising or might not have thought about. So there is an aspect to that. I don't know if there's particular, without divulging any names or anything, but like business partners or people that you've really enjoyed working with over the years or playing that sort of facilitation consultative role.
So our very first brand name we ever made for was Club Monaco. I was a cool kid in high school that was able to wear samples. So that has obviously become a very global brand. It was actually homegrown in Canada. And from there, word got around. It's about the quality, being a responsible manufacturer, hitting your deadlines, having open communication, being honest, and letting you know when things are going awry. I think just that was really important. And so Club Monaco was the first one. And then there's a few other iconic Canadian brands that it's probably best that I don't divulge. But I would say they predominantly made a lot of products in Canada as well.
For yourself and for Redwood, what does Made in Canada mean for you and the company? And has that changed over the years?
I've realized, especially in the last 6 months in the environment that we're in, Made in Canada and Redwood Classics is a love story from our family to the country. We came with absolutely nothing, and this country embraced us, gave us opportunities, and I think back and I wonder if we never came here, what our life would be. That's actually one of the reasons why I became my dad's business partner. My parents actually met in a textile company at a factory. So I guess you could say textiles is in my blood. I wouldn't have the life that I have and the things that I experienced and the education that I have if it wasn't for the factory and if it wasn't for our family of makers. So I said yes, and I became my dad's business partner. And I said 5 people in 10 machine. At the peak, we were employing close to 500 people. We were as vertical as a manufacturer can be. At this point, we used to be about 70% of the fabric that we consume at the factory level was knitted within 100 miles radius of us. We're at about 50 now. So we're not a big factory, but we have a little bit of everything. And so that's how come we commission knit. I would say 6-7 years ago, maybe we had 5 knitters, local knitters. These are family run generational businesses that were creating Canadian jobs. And mostly were women owned and or minority owned. Well, there's not enough support for Made in Canada. There wasn't enough support in terms of actual transactions happening. I think we say it. There's a lot of Canadians and we say that we want to support Made in Canada. But the one thing I hope we'll realize is we can influence business decision makers, right? And I'm not saying everything has to be made in Canada. We have to be realistic. It's just like not everything can be organic, not everything. But if we're intentional with our decision making, I call it conscious consumption, that can be practiced at an independent level between you and I. When you allow or we encourage business leaders, Canadian business leaders, to make intentional and conscious consumption decisions, that's where the impact can be scaled.
Yeah, you can go from these individual decisions to sort of community level decisions and then have large companies driving the way with large framework choices or value choices or purchase choices that can really make a huge difference.
It is a commitment. Liam, can I just share with you? I don't think I realized the impact and how much I loved our business and what it meant to be Canadian until we were hit with the pandemic. And as I reflect, I fell in love with my business all over again. We had makers that were taking public transit to come and volunteer to make masks so we can protect our community. Because within my network, people knew that I owned a factory and we had resources and we had raw material. There was a point where nobody had elastics. Well, we had elastics. Nobody had fabric. We had fabric. And people would come to my front door and I would just give it to them. And you remember sewers were being celebrated, home
Hmm.
sewers. And that made me realize again when I reflect after all that craziness was done because it was really hard. It was really, really hard. But we played a role. And that's why I often say I don't think it's fair to support local manufacturing only when it's convenient for you. We need to be
Totally.
intentional.
Well, you see this, Canada, we need to make sure we insist on Canadian manufacturing in good times and bad. And
Yeah.
we need to make sure that we're working with our Canadian partners to make here in Canada all the time, and that there's value in that, that our communities are made stronger, that our country is made stronger, that our economy is made stronger when we double down and invest in the families, the people, the makers, the skilled workers that make these amazing products available to companies and consumers across Canada and around the world. So, looking ahead, and what do you think the trends shaping the future of the Canadian apparel manufacturing sector are?
Mm.
Let's say in the next 2 years, do you think there's going to be anything that's going to be really emergent and something that you and your colleagues are going to have to work hard to manage or deal with?
Yeah, it's only going to decline even more. Did you know that apparel making is not considered a skilled trade according to the
What?
Ontario government ministry? Yep. If you look up.
Wow. Minister Fideli, Premier Ford, if you're watching this, we need some updates. According
Mhm.
to President here, Kathy Cheng of Redwood Classics, one of Ontario's most important manufacturing brands.
Yeah, we're not a skilled trade. So
Hmm.
programs that are out there, sometimes we're not eligible for. But we're manufacturing. And we
Mm-hmm.
bring in technology where we can. A few years ago, we invested a lot of money into digital print. We were the first company to bring in a roll to roll digital print machine and we were to create jobs and that was the intent of that was to help us to commercialize incubator and then open up not just in fashion industry but how about home decor. There were a lot of different industries we would be able to support. So, how are we not part of the manufacturing landscape? We're trying to do smart manufacturing, but
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to do when we're not considered a skilled trade.
We're going to get this changed.
I hope so.
Are there theories on why that is?
Is it a sexy business?
Hmm.
When people ask me what I do, I ask them, do you want the sexy answer or do you want the business answer? Because the sexy answer is I'm in fashion, but I'm actually in the business of fashion. I'm in the supply chain of fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And until we start recognizing that as an economy, that fashion is a business of fashion, maybe then
Mm-hmm.
we'll start turning it into a skilled trade.
Interesting. Yeah, we
So
need to embrace that.
it saddens me, but more than 50% of what we've made over the years is exported outside of this country.
Insane.
And that's why I mentioned the inputs of the trade agreement. But yes, thankfully, we do have 15 active trade agreements. We're spreading our made in Canada goodness to different markets that actually appreciate the quality. Because Canada in itself is a brand.
Mm-hmm.
And we
It
as
really is, eh?
Canadians, I don't know if we celebrate ourselves the way we should. And that is why I love what you and Emma have done.
Thank you.
You're celebrating us as a country.
We needed to. There was a moment in time we just needed to step up. And the work that people have been doing in the textiles industry for uh, millennia have allowed people to express themselves in really unique ways. And that tradition that you're carrying on so bravely led to people like myself and Emma having an idea and wanting to put it on a garment or put it on a hat and share that message on a person as they walk around doing their thing. Yeah, it's been amazing to bring Canadians together.
It has been remarkable how you've built a platform for Canadians to celebrate each other. So it
Yes.
is such an honor because this is our commitment, right?
Hmm.
So thank you for seeing us.
No problem. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being there. I wonder from your perspective what it's like to align Redwood's mission with other brands. I know you talked about the incubator concept and the collaborative aspect, but I wonder if there are other elements to working with much smaller startup brands and how those partnerships kind of fit inside of the Redwood mission.
We've been part of industry panels with most of the fashion schools in Ontario. Prior to COVID, even right now, we're open to do school tours. We did a lot of tours because we believe you need to see it to believe it. And I think that's what made me and drove me to really lean on humanizing the business even more. We would do school tours and you would see students in awe that there were so many pairs of hands touching the product. So to be able to get a glimpse behind the scenes, I think that's one of the things that we do. I get involved, I speak, I also donate a lot of my time, I volunteer. And this is, I'll be honest, and this is why I have to say we're a commercialized incubator because at times it would be a little bit daunting. We want to support budding entrepreneurs, but that's where I put my volunteer time because during business hours, I need to run a business and it's going to go back to people, planet, and profit. As much as I volunteer, if I spend all my work time volunteering, which I do
Mm,
volunteering as it is, we need to keep the lights on here.
yeah.
So yes, we do work with micro brands, but I would say we hold a tight portfolio where there's an inflection point where they've been in the marketplace for a little bit, they're ready to kind of get to the next level and
Hmm.
have the infrastructure and the knowledge and experience to help you get there together.
You hear that, Canadian makers? You can get enough to stock a farmer's market for the summer or put them in every Canadian Tire across the country, all 400 stores. Whatever you need, Kathy and Redwood have you sorted. You
Yeah,
guys are amazing.
amazing. It's been such an honor and a privilege to be part of this journey.
Before I forget, there's one thing I wanted to ask you. If you had a message for provincial government of Ontario or the federal government of Canada, what would those messages be with respect to your business and the industry at large and where we need to go with this new renewed energy in the Canadian federal government and all this talk of collaboration?
I would say be intentional with our own tax dollars and our spend. Supplier diversity is being intentional with who we procure with and what we procure. Invest in us, in citizens. So let's look at the way that we're procuring. And as we're looking at the way that we're procuring, also be mindful with the investments that we're making.
Let's make Ontario and Canada a manufacturing superpower again.
I would say let's recognize that there is still manufacturing. And how do we bridge that with technology to enable us to modernize, build the skill set, lift up our citizens and our skill sets together? And let's not forget that we are powered by people. And also, let's also run our government like a business to some degree.
Mm.
Put some accountability there. That's what we need to do. We need to be accountable. As business leaders, we have to be accountable to our bottom line. So I'm going to challenge our government officials to do the same. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. We just have to be intentional.
I love it. Kathy Cheng, Redwood Classics. Thanks for dropping this knowledge and this wisdom
Oh,
today. Thank you
thank
so much for
you.
sharing all this. This has
May
been really
I
cool.
really honor my dad, my business partner, our makers here, our team. It's not me. It's them. It's our partners. It's our supply chain. It's our knitters. It is people in our dye house, people in our sewing floor. They're the ones, and they're faceless. And I want to give them a face. I want to give them a voice. It's
Inspiring.
it's them. It's not me. I just happen to be able to speak English and a bit of French.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for sharing your story and the Redwood Classic story and the story of your dad and your family. It's very, very cool. And we're very honored to speak with you today. Thanks, Kathy.